listen up. So today we're going to be doing a presentation on how to present by me and Lucy. So first, credentials. I'm Alina Chen. I'm a senior at this school. I've debated for 4 years, so I do a lot of public speaking, and I also teach a lot of people about public speaking and how to speak well, along with the debate part, but that's not going to be really important for now.
My name is Lucy Liu, and I'm a sophomore at TJ. Not as qualified as Miss Alina Chen right here, but I am a class council member, so I have a lot of experience with leadership and communication. And I'm also very active in the debate department as well.
Okay, so this is the 3 things we're going to be going through. The first is just how to public speak. Second, we're going to be talking about like slideshow and the actual presentation itself. And then third, we'll run through some examples, which will take care of. Okay, so first, why is this an important skill to have, and why are we even talking about this? So public speaking is really important. First, obviously for investment club, you guys give a lot of presentations, and from the presentations we've all seen, they aren't that great, so there's a lot of room to improve, which is why we're giving this lecture on public speaking, so hopefully you guys are listening, because this is pretty important. Second, for investment competitions, I know a lot of you guys will probably be involved in these investment competitions, and one thing that's really important in there, other than the technical aspect, is the speaking part and giving the presentation. That's also a really important part in how to present yourself, and that's what we're going to go through here. And the other 3 are not as relevant to investment club itself, but still good life skills to have. It's class presentation, so you're going to get up and you're sometimes going to give presentations in class, and delivery is going to be a really important part of that. Internship presentations and also one-on-one interviews, that also counts as a presentation. Your audience is just one person.
Yeah, so there are two components to a successful presentation. One is the content of the presentation. It determines how impactful your talk can be. So, like, you need to know what you're talking about. You can't just be like yapping up there. there are many types of people. Like, I see this in MUN all the time. Some people, they don't actually have content down, but they have the second component of a successful presentation down, and that is delivery. You need to be loud, you need to be confident, you need to be clear. Delivery basically determines how impactful your talk actually is. And so to have a successful presentation, you need to have both those components.
Okay, so this is actually really important. I know a lot of you guys aren't paying attention, and that's really your loss because this is a very important life skill to have. But I'm gonna go through it anyway. So first is audience. You really need to analyze the audience you're talking to first. So right now I'm talking to a bunch of high school students, and that's gonna change how I give my presentation and how I speak, how slow I talk, how many like pauses I do, for example, and like what hand movements I do. So there are a couple I'm going to go through. The first is one-on-one for interviews. And so for example, college, you're going to be talking to a lot of interviews. Internships, when you're getting recruited, you're going to have to do interviews. It's a really important part. Second is like a small group setting. So that's like maybe if you do science fair or you're presenting a poster and you're giving it to like 3 or 4 people, that's a small group presentation. Room full of scientists, that's like a conference if you're presenting a paper or you're presenting a poster in a room full of people who are very qualified on the subject you're talking to. And the fourth is just like general public speeches, kind of something like this. And second, you want to look at the subtle feedback from audience. So are they engaged? Are they looking at me? Are they looking at the slides? Or are they on their computers? Probably not paying attention. You want to keep track of that, and you want to keep their attention at all times. And a really good way to gauge that is just by analyzing your audience at all times during your presentation.
Yeah, and so now for the actual speaking skills, you want to be speaking loudly, you want to be speaking clearly as well. So you don't want to be too fast or you don't want to be too slow either. It's like you have to have a good pace, and this comes along with a lot of the vocal elements you need to have when you're presenting, such as tone and inflection. So tone is basically what kind of tone are you using to present whatever content you're presenting. So tone can be like a negative tone if you're like convincing people, oh, we need to stop world hunger or something like that. But a positive tone would imply more enthusiasm, optimism, stuff like that. And inflection is basically like the high and low pitches of your voice. You don't want to be too monotone all the time, or else your audience wouldn't be as engaged. Please pauses. And also you want to try to limit filler words. This is honestly really hard, and I think I'm still struggling with that. But you want to try your best to just, instead of saying like or just pause. And try not to mumble either. With a less familiar audience or the general public, such as you guys, you want to try to talk slower, at a slower pace with more pauses, and you want to try to have a more playful and interactive voice inflection to keep your audience engaged.
Yeah. So I'm gonna talk about the pen drill and then also just kind of add on to what Lucy said. So first, for the pen drill, I know this kind of seems like a laundry list of things. The only way you can get better is just practicing. The more you practice, at least when I saw some presentations that were being given, a lot of people use filler words, like they just say like over and over again. And a good way to prevent that is when you kind of see yourself about to say like, you instead pause or you like lengthen the word you were saying before, if that kind of makes sense, to prevent you from saying these words. What the pen drill is, it's basically when you're giving a speech, you put a pen in between your mouth. These are kind of too thick for me to demonstrate, but you put a pen in between your mouth like this, and then you give the speech you're trying to say, and it's like really hard to say it. And the point of the drill is to help you project more and be able to like pronounce your words better. It's a really good drill. A lot of debaters do it, and it's good if you want to like practice giving a speech slowly and like high quality. So you should try it out if you ever have to present something. And yeah, you can ask me like. Okay, so nonverbal skills. So Lucy just went over verbal skills, which is what you're going to be saying. I'm going to go over nonverbal skills. So you want to use eye contact and body language effectively. So first is you don't want to make unnecessary hand movements. Like I've noticed when people are talking, they just like do this over and over again. It's not really adding anything to your speech. For example, if you want to compare two things, you can do something like this, or like something's really big or something's really small. But you don't want to like do this over and over again. You're just really dumb. Also, you don't need to use hand movements for everything you're saying. You only want to do it like occasionally, maybe like only when you need it. Because when you do it super repetitively, it's not really a good look. First, eye contact. You don't want to stare like one person down. That's really weird. But you also want to maintain eye contact. So what I do is like I kind of pick people to like look at for a bit, and then I kind of just like move around the room. You don't want to like be looking up or down. You kind of want to like scan the room, but you also want to be like looking at people. So I know eye contact is really hard. It's really awkward when you're staring at one person in the crowd, and I had a lot of trouble with eye contact. So to start off with that, you want to start by looking at somebody's like shirt or above their head. That'll be a little bit easier because it kind of gives the impression that you're looking at them, but also you're not really looking at them, but it's still the eye contact is there. Also be confident. That's the most important part. You could be really nervous about something, but don't let that reflect. Like don't be like, oh, I don't really know about this topic, but, and then you just start speaking. Like that already puts you at a lower position and it makes you look less confident. You want to start off on the higher ground, and even if you don't know what you're talking about, at least act like you know what you're talking about, and everybody else is going to believe you. No fidgeting, hands in pockets, or rocking back and forth. I mean, that's just pretty basic. I know that's kind of a hard thing to like correct, and you probably do some of these subconsciously, you don't even notice, but that's just something you want to fix over time, I guess. And also posture, like you just want to look presentable and you just want to look nice when you're doing something. But yeah.
Yeah, so more on nonverbal skills, you'll notice that we have a lot of slides on these because not only is your verbal presentation important, but also what you do when you're not talking. So as Alina said, you want to try to focus one person at a time, scan the entire room, make one-on-one contact. And if that's too hard, then you would try to look at foreheads, collars, or shirts. Or even for me, sometimes I like look at the back of the room a little bit and I'd like look around. It still seems like I'm looking at people. And you want to try to face towards your audience as much as possible and not towards the presentation like this the entire time.
Yeah, and also you don't want to read off bullet points. Like I know some people give class presentations like this and then they just read verbatim like off the bullet points. Like you don't want to do that. You want to be more prepared. You need to be able to like glance at the slide and then be able to go on like a 15-20 second tangent on it. You shouldn't have to be like relying on your slides the whole time. It's just a really like, it's not a good look basically.
Yeah, so these are just, this is a nice resource to look at for examples of hand gestures. We'll post these slides later so they can go through them. You should try to, if you don't know what to do with your hands, just drop your hands to the side or kind of like behind you, something like that. And no Andrew Tate hands, no pointing, no Clinton thumb. Don't go like this. Andrew Tate hands are like this. And then Clinton thumb is kind of like, I don't know, if you've ever seen recordings of him talking, he's always like,
like, you need to do this, you need to do this, like don't, that's weird. And yeah, don't rest your hands like that.
And don't point like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, these are examples.
These are what not to do.
Like that. Or don't do this either.
Okay, so this is how you can practice. So I know this presentation might seem like a lot. Like I said before, the only way you can get better is just to give as many presentations, volunteer for as many presentations as you can for this club. So you have that practice, you can come up here and you can give something and then we'll give you feedback and you just improve from there. So first, what I do at least is I record like first 5 minutes or first 10 minutes of my presentation. and then I just watch it over. These are just some things I watch out for: hand gestures, posture, and movement. Listen to your pauses. Are you speaking too fast? For me, I have a tendency to speak way too fast sometimes, and nobody can understand what I'm saying. So I really have to like try to slow down when I'm speaking so people can understand what I'm saying. Another thing I do is you want to give your presentation to a family member, somebody who's less knowledgeable about the subject, and then you also want to give it to somebody who's more knowledgeable about the subject. So you kind of give it to the two audiences and you see what they both say, because like both of their feedbacks you can integrate to make your presentation better for everybody just to listen to. And also the most important thing is practice giving your presentation without slides or without a script, because that will really help you understand like what's going on. You know what to say. You don't need to rely on the slides, or you don't need to rely like off a sheet of paper to like understand what you're saying.
All right, well, thank you guys for talking so far. They're not good. Okay, so around 2 years ago, I started realizing that a big problem with TJ students is that they don't know how to present themselves very well. Now, of course, I don't want to generalize to everyone, because obviously we have some great speakers in the school, but a lot of times there's a lot of wasted talent, especially within the student body. Like, one thing that comes to my mind is, you guys familiar with Innovate TJ, right? LaunchX runs it. So 2 years ago, I did it with a couple of friends, and we had one kid on our team who was like a bio nerd, man. Our entire thing was biology related. He knew all the details behind it, he knew all the technical stuff. But when the presentation came and a question was asked about it, my God, man, that guy stuttered so much. He didn't know what he was gonna say, and you could just tell from the judge's eyes that his response lost his points. Now, he could have very well known that entire biotech, whatever, like, I don't even know what he was talking about. He could have very well known that entire idea in his head, but he didn't present it properly, and at that point, it doesn't even matter anymore. So, after sort of realizing that, I wanted to make sure that in my own speaking skills, when I talk, I also had the same sort of command that a lot of great speakers have. So really, I was just looking through some of the resources that I used 2 years ago to look and sort of get better. And the first one that comes to my mind is this podcast that Stanford Graduate School of Business runs called Think Fast, Talk Smart. It's just sort of small tricks with how you present yourself, how you speak with your colleagues, how you speak with fellow students, how you speak to people who are mentors towards you, and even how you write sometimes. So that's a great resource. The second one is Jamie Dimon's speech to the Harvard Business School class of 2009. Throughout this year, we'll probably learn Jamie Dimon is probably one of the guys I most respect in the finance world right now. He's the CEO of JP Morgan Chase and the CEO of Chase Bank. And this speech is probably one of my favorite speeches of all time. I highly recommend checking it out, mainly because the way he commands the audience while he's speaking is very good, and there's a lot of good lessons on there as well. And the last one, which by far is the most important thing that you can do outside of here, is to watch this MIT OpenCourseWare class called How to Speak. The professor there was great, and I sort of put it on while I was eating lunch over the course of like 2 days. This is during summer, so I finished it throughout like a lunch and a dinner. So maybe throughout the next couple of weeks, instead of watching Netflix or YouTube, if you put one of these on, I'm sure that'll help you at least start thinking about how you can speak better. All right, so this is not really related to the resources, and I'll probably put some more resources online, and there's a lot more resources on the education document that we sent out in week 1. But if you're gonna be putting something on a slide, you better know what you're talking about and the why behind everything. So I can easily tell you the why behind each one of these things. I've actually watched them myself, and I actually know like the people behind them and sort of the ideas that they're trying to get across. So I'm an expert on everything on this slide that I'm presenting. So I was gonna use our Word presentation from last year, but I think John, who was one of the seniors last year, actually has it in his computer. I don't have it on mine. So I'm gonna use another competition I was at, which is a math competition. And I just wanted to run through this real quick. So one part of the competition was that we had to talk about assumptions in our model. So on the board, now this is a different type of competition, so we could technically have more words on the slides. Realistically, I think this slide looks really ugly. I don't like the black background and the white text on top, but there's nothing much I can do about that. But we have some assumptions here, something about like the market growth and the sales. If like, any judge asks me questions about anything on here, I should be able to answer quite literally anything about it. So like, I guess in the interest of time, I'm not gonna ask anyone, but if you can ask me anything on here, I'll give you a great answer to it. And that's how it should be in all of your slideshows as well. Not only what this means, but the why behind it. Why is this on here in the first place? And that's the one thing that I find it's really hard to get across. So hopefully next week's presentations, you guys actually know the why. You know what everything on your slide should be. You should be an expert at it. And I'll tell you why this is important. Another thing with presentations is that sometimes you just know when a presentation is good. I've been to around, I don't want to name drop anyone because obviously this video is online, but I've been to around, I'd say like 5 competitions where you can see other people's presentations, and sometimes you just know when someone is just so knowledgeable that their presentation is just better than everyone else's. Like I can bring, for example, back into the Wharton investment competition, there was a team, I won't describe it any more than a team, but it was 4 students, and you could just tell that they were coached. Every single word they were saying was off the script, and when the judges asked questions about it, you can just tell that they had no idea what they were talking about. Not only that, but a judge literally asked a question about their slideshow, which was about some natural language processing thing, and they gave the most BS response I've heard in my entire life. They said that they had some computer science algorithm on it, but then they said they did it by hand. If you're gonna put something on the slideshow, you better damn well be sure that you know what you're talking about. So, those are sort of the points I wanted to get across, especially with competitive presentations. But I guarantee you, in an interview, whether it's for college, a job, I've interviewed over 50 kids at our school. I know exactly right off the bat from within the first 20 seconds whether I want to accept them or not. Because just the energy that you bring to a conversation or a speech in general is just so much more important than I think anything else. And it could really take a good presentation to a great one, and it could save a horrible presentation from being probably one of the worst things I've seen in my entire life. And also, a great presentation and great content is really ruined by a poor delivery. So this is why it's important a bit, and I'm going to go onto Facebook and put some more resources there just because I feel like there's no reason to gatekeep them. But yeah, I guess with that, you guys can continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Om. Just a note, like everything Om has said is super valuable. That's stuff you would normally have to pay for, and other kids in schools would never be able to find that information until they spent hours. And he's coming up here and we're giving you this super valuable advice. So you probably should pay attention and don't complain in the future if your presentations are bad, because we're literally telling you right now how to get better. We have everything on you. I know it seems like a long list, but you can always refer back to it and just look back at it if you want to try and improve.
Yeah. And then back to what Om said, kind of like relates back to the 2 components of what makes a presentation successful. So once again, it's delivery and it's also the content. So you can be really knowledgeable about something, but you're not able to deliver it right. And then on the other hand, some people like don't know what they're talking about, but they can deliver and they can spout some nonsense. But you want to have both those components to be a successful speaker.
Yeah, so both are really important, and yeah. Okay, so next, also another note. Next week when you guys give presentations, they better be better than what we were seeing in the last couple weeks, because we're telling you how to get better. So if we see 0 improvement, then we're all gonna know that you weren't paying attention, or you didn't even care enough to like look back at our slides, or you didn't look at the resources that Om's giving you. These are resources he's went through and he's done all the courses. He thinks they're valuable enough to share, which is why he's sharing them. They're not just like random websites we pulled off the web. So first, on slides, don't overload your slides. Like Om's presentation, if it had a dark background and light text, you don't want to be doing like super bright and ugly colors like I was seeing in the last couple presentations. Like you don't want bright red or yellow or green like out of nowhere. That just makes no sense. Do it like where you need it pretty much. The 6x6 rule is just max 6 bullets, max 6 words on each bullet point. It's not a super hard rule you have to follow. It's just like generally what it should be. And basically it's just so you're not overloading the viewer with a lot of information that they don't need. You don't want to be typing like paragraphs on your slides. It should be small points that you glance off of, and you should be able to give a very knowledgeable summary about the point. And also, the audience focus should be on you. They shouldn't be reading the slides. If they're reading the slides, that means that you put way too much information on it. They should be focused on you and what you're saying and intaking the information that you're talking about. And oh yeah, before coming up here to present, you can consult an officer, and also after your presentation, any of us here are more than happy enough to give you feedback on on the content of your presentation and how you delivered it. Because like we said before, both of those aspects are really, really, really important.
And then going back to that tips slide about actual slideshow, I think a really major problem I see here is that you're like overloading the entire slide. Like I cannot see anything what's going on that slide. Like if you want to put a picture on one side and then go to another slide. Like please do not put like 10,000 pictures on one side and then put text over the pictures. It's not going to be effective in basically implying like displaying whatever you're presenting.
Oh wait, actually, if you're gonna put a graph on your slide, it better be important. I don't want to see any of these like what was I seeing last time? Like some inflation chart, you just put it there. And you're like, oh, it went up this year and it went down here. If you're gonna put a graph, know the why behind it. I don't want, like, there's no reason for it to be there. I can start stuff on my own.
The Google stock picker. Like
Yeah, I don't know. What's the point of those? Everything on there needs to have value, or it's a waste of your space and a waste of our time.
Yeah, so some final tips to just round it all off. When the audience asks you a question, you can sort of repeat the audience question, think about it in your mind before you answer, give an effective answer. Don't just, if you don't know what to say, you can loop around the question for a little bit, but eventually just get to your point. And then number 2, obviously don't word for word read off of your slides. Like if you're just reading off of your slides like this, it's not effective at all. Number 3, don't read off of notes or index cards. If you're just looking down the entire time and not making eye contact with the audience, you're not engaging anyone. And number 4, don't make excuses. Practice. Don't make excuses for a bad presentation.
Yeah, and like Om and Lucy said, it's really important that you also know what you're talking about. Like both of us know what we're talking about, which is why we're able to like talk to you guys and not read off some script or my phone. And that's because when you're more comfortable with what you're talking about, like we both have had a lot of experience with public speaking, it's a lot easier to just talk to you guys instead of like reading off something. So it's just a really good idea to know what you're talking about, be confident about the information, review your slides a lot of times beforehand before you come up here and present. Like when you come up here and present, it shouldn't be the first time you're going through your slides or the first time you're trying to give a presentation off your slides, because that's really hard.
And then already did it.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, I'm the one and only, so.
Well, I didn't have that.
I did.
Okay, that was you.
Because I thought you were going to do it in the end.
All right, that's fine. All right, thank you guys. Okay, so we have like 14 more minutes. There's a couple of updates on the leadership side of some things that we got done. You want to talk about it?
Yeah. So one more thing is we have our investment club website up. It's TJHSST investmentclub.com. I'll make a post on Facebook later, but check it out. It has a bunch of resources on previous lectures and all that kind of stuff. And it also has some information about our symposium that we'll have later. So please check out our website.
Cool. What's I talk about? Okay, Arnav, you want to talk about the? Oh wait, now that we have the website up. Oh, if you haven't signed in yet, make sure to do so. I'm pretty sure everyone here has. Now that we have the website up, we can start moving on. Oh, you can start recording now. It's fine. Now that we have the